Are you a 9 on the Enneagram or not? Ponder deeply. This video is me packing everything I know into 5 concise insights to help you to work out, am I a 9? Am I a 5? Am I something else? This video focuses only on 9. Go and look at some of the others if you're not sure between 1 or 2 types. And to help you figure out if you're a 9 or not, I'm going to give you a useful metaphor, a soundbite that I use with most of my clients and I teach to my Enneagram coaches. We're going to also deep dive, or should I say, not deep dive, lightly touch the red pearls, but just enough to help you understand whether you are possibly a red pearl or not. I'm going to share and layer onto that your polarity. I'm going to also touch on your harmonic as a 9, if you are a 9. And finally, we'll put a bow on it by covering your growth path. And this is all here to help you to decide and to learn more about 9 and see if you can see yourself in this Enneagram type. So here's my 9 metaphor or symbolic visual language for you to see if you can relate or not. Picture a pond. Picture being in the pond, standing in the pond. If you were trying not to make any ripples, nothing, not even one tiny little ripple, what would you have to do to not make ripples? You'd probably need to sit and stand very still, maybe even not breathe so much or breathe very gently. And ultimately, you may even disappear, to not be there. And that is a way of really understanding the expression of 9 on the Enneagram. And you'll see when we connect it into the pearls and the polarities, 9's biggest struggle is this whole disappearing act, losing their center of gravity, losing being the center of their solar system, all to not make ripples, all not to disturb, to disrupt, even at the sacrifice of being fully present. So 9 is a red pearl. And I'm going to teach you this in the way that I have learned is possibly quite useful. I use the pearl metaphor on purpose. Just like a grain of sand irritates an oyster, and then the oyster starts to coat that grain of sand in layers upon layers upon layers until a beautiful pearl is formed. 8, 9, and 1 all share the same pearl. Now, we get very confused about the Enneagram when we don't realize that the Enneagram is not based on what we do, but is based on why we do what we do. And a red pearl does what they do because of the red grain of sand. So here are 4 key words that I've put together that help us to understand the why behind the behavior, the reason we do what we do. That together with the polarity really does make up the type and helps you to understand where it's coming from and why it is a 9. We start with gut. Now, gut does not mean intuition. We can all have intuition. What I mean by gut is the felt sense. It's a physical sense, a reflex. It's a reflexive action in the body, pre-verbal. We add that to anger. Now, here's the thing. Does that cartoon look angry? 9s don't look angry. They're very peaceful, chilled. There's an absence of anger for the most part. And you're going to see why when we cover the polarity. But it's very important to understand this because a lot of 9s don't recognize themselves in the Enneagram because they see the word anger and it's kind of the opposite. So think of anger as having a volume button. If you look at low volume anger, it looks quite different to high volume anger. What is low volume anger? Grr, irritation, rumble in the jungle. Yeah? And nines can know that about themselves. Yeah, I can be a bit grumpy. I can be a little bit Not that it shows often or much. In fact, if you ask an average 9 to count how many times in their whole life that they got properly angry, where it tilted into the rage space, many will say they can't think of a single time, or they'll say, oh yeah, there was that once, and maybe there's other, but it's very few times. And when that anger expresses, it's usually very much full body rage and then gone very quickly, but it's there. Now we connect that to the word resistance. There is an inertia, which is like a pushback, as if you imagine pushing a rock. It feels like the rock's pushing you back with gravity. And with our nines, there is this gut resistance and this anger and this scanning. How am I impacting? How am I being impacted? How am I impacting? How am I being impacted? In the pond, right? So the pond is this place of feeling for those ripples and the impact. Now we're going to layer on the polarity, and it should all start to make more sense. The primary polarity, there are others, but this is the one that I find the most reliably helpful. I'm peaceful, not a disruptor. And you can see how that is connected to the disappearing pond, because we're trying to be peaceful and therefore disappearing in the pond. The ripples are the disruption. Now you can see how this may connect. Let's join the dots to the pearl. A nine's program, the way a 9 is designed, like everything in life has got a pattern and a design, is that the gut instinct is wired to peace versus disruption. It's like the whole body feels those ripples. When something disrupts, it can trigger anger, irritation. It's almost like if you disturb my peace, there's a grr. But think about it. This is a red pearl trying to be peaceful. So this is an anger type trying not to be angry, because there's nothing quite like anger to make ripples. True? And this is how you understand the dilemma in a 9. That the 9 is in conflict with its own pearl until it's not. But this is the journey of a 9. And my personality is a 9. I understand this journey very, very well. Now we connect resistance to this. There's a gut felt, irritated resistance to the disruption of peace, to the loud, aggressive person over there making all the ripples and waves when I'm trying so hard to be still and chilled and go with the flow and be peaceful. Does that ring a bell? And I'm feeling very impacted by a disruption of peace. Anything that makes a ripple feels like impact in the body of a 9. I'm also trying to make peace happen by impacting, by influencing the pond. But of course, the price is the self, which is why 9s struggle to even complete sentences that start with I. I feel, I stand for, I need, I want, I like, I choose, as if this is missing in action. And it's all because of the disappearing pond, because of this conflict between the polarity and the pearl. Does that make sense? Does this land for you? Is this too close to home? I know the journey. So let's look at some of these keywords that this can become. This can become a kind of numbing. You can imagine that in this pond where we resist disruption. There can be this kindness, this chilled, always joke. Okay, this is a joke. It's a joke. Disclaimer, joke. Always joke. My 9s can sound like they came from Cape Town or from California. If you know any other places in the world that have the same vibe, you can let me know so I can expand the cities. But it's like California or Cape Town. It just has this tilt. And it is an exaggeration. There's a lot of nines that are more Homer Simpson-like, including some of my past as me. Dreamer. Okay. There's this also not now. Procrastination. Not now. Let's just avoid. Let's just leave it out. Tuned out. Neutral about everything. Fence sitting. Go with the flow. And self-effacing, of course. And this tendency to merge, which comes from the pond, because in the pond I have to feel the ripples, and I have to feel who's making the ripples and try and smooth everything over in order that there be no ripples. Can you feel how impossible that is? Yeah, that's why the growth path becomes super important. And owning your red pearl, owning your fire in your belly. How's that landing for you? If you're resonating, maybe a 9. If not, maybe not. One of my favorite teachings from Riso and Hudson, the great respected Enneagram teachers, is the teaching on harmonics. And I've done a bit of a Cole thing on it. I've distilled the harmonics into a simple alliterated form. So check if you relate to the 9's harmonic. So 9 belongs to the Positivity Harmonic. The other harmonics, which I've named with also P alliterated words, are purge and practical, or pragmatic if you like. What does this mean? 2, 7, and 9 share the Positivity Harmonic, basically one representative of each pearl, green, blue, and red. So 9 is the red pearl harmonic for positivity. The Positivity Harmonic means that the first thing that you need if you are a 9 as part of your Positivity Harmonic, in order to bond, in order to connect with others, is something affirming, something uplifting, something positive. That smile, that affirmation, that validation, that uplifting something is a way that 2, 7, and 9s connect. It's the first thing needed from the space in relationship to teams, to colleagues, to loved ones. Whereas your purging and your practical or your pragmatic harmonic need something else from the space. The purging group need to vent, and the practical group need to get straight into useful, pragmatic, solution finding, move the dial, roll up sleeves. So it's important to understand, if you relate to this, if you relate to, actually if I notice, I do better at a sense of connecting, maybe even coming out of the numbing, withdrawn state, if there is a sense of uplifting, positivity, something affirming in the space. So check if you relate to that. And finally, the growth path. Think of every Enneagram type as connected to a door for growth. Now this door could be closed, open, or anywhere in between, a little open, a little closed. In order for a 9 to grow, just like knowing what we need an apple tree to help an apple tree grow, we need to access the best of 3. Without the best of 3, it's as if a 9 can't express at its highest, which is another way of saying that if we want to understand what a 9 looks like at its lowest expression, we simply remove all the qualities of the best of 3, and you'll have a clear understanding of 9. As a 9 grows to its highest expression, it opens that door. So let's look at what 3 is at its highest expression and how it could be missing entirely from low expressing 9. So the best of 3 is being alive, motivated, dynamic, taking action, and very much the positive expression of me. What do I want? What are my goals? What are my dreams? And how do I get into that entrepreneurial energy, problem solve, fire in my belly, heart, desire, what I want, and how do I make it happen? That's hard for a 9. It requires energy. It requires being willing to disrupt the pond. Ooh, something a 3 can do is a 3 can step into a room and show up fully inspired to inspire. 9 at its highest expression, and here it is, I'm going to drop it in the room, ready, is willing to boom, boom, shake the room. It's my latest little mantra for how a 9 grows. But of course, a 9 does not want to shake the room because this program of the pond, because of trying to remain at peace at all times. But here's the thing, is it real peace? Is it real peace? Or is it a kind of fake peace? Not fake like a mask, but not natural. Your natural peace as a 9 comes from accessing 3, going into more competitive in a healthy, ethical way. Like everything in life's competing for sunlight. Doesn't mean it steps on others. Nope, you don't have to do that. But it's awake, it's alive, it's visible, and it's willing to impact, and it's willing to be impacted, and it's willing to shake the room. It owns its red fire in the gut, owns that anger in a healthy expression is assertion, is confidence, and that's what we're missing when we're trying to hold our breath in the pond. So if you relate to that and it's landing for you, perhaps a little bit too close to home, then maybe that's some validation that indeed you may be a 9. If not, maybe your journey continues. But of course, remember that you are not in your personality is in you. And that by learning the Enneagram, we can actually gain insight so that we can be good friends to ourselves, so that we can nourish our personalities the way we would water a beautiful apple tree in our garden and give it sunlight and give it what it needs to grow. So if you've enjoyed this video and you know somebody who might enjoy it too, perhaps forward it on. Otherwise, you know what to do. A very non-9 thing to ask, right? Like, subscribe, and thank you for watching.